Hi, welcome to Silent Generation. I'm Joseph,
I'm Nathan.
and this week we're discussing fraternities. So on the pod, we've discussed a series of secular civic organizations, all kind of around the late 1800s. And fraternities and sororities emerged earlier than that, but they really exploded in that time. And they've become this key part of college life. They serve a lot of purposes for students, and I was a part of one, and I'm really excited to talk about them.
I wasn't part of one, but I'm excited to talk about them too, because I learned a lot over the course of this week, and a lot of my negative stereotypes about fraternities and frat brothers, I reevaluated them, and I've come to find that there is a lot of good that they do.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges, but a lot of good.
Yeah. Do you want to start out with the history of fraternities?
Yeah, so like the origins of this, as I said, like do go back like a lot further than you think they would. So Phi Beta Kappa was actually founded at William and Mary in 1776. Woo, go America. I guess like big year for us. A lot of stuff was happening. It's amazing they found the time to found a new form of like community. But yeah, the first thing that we'd recognize as a social fraternity of today would be Kappa Alpha, and that was founded in 1825. So Phi Beta Kappa was like out of this tradition of like literary societies on campus. But Kappa Alpha just said like, no, the main point is friendship. Maybe we'll read some books along the way.
Yeah. No, from my understanding, when fraternities first emerged, they were kind of a mixture of secret societies, also literary societies and dinner clubs.
Yeah, and they started to grow in this period of like the mid 1800s, but to the secret society thing, there was a big fear around secret societies in this time. Like America was still figuring out what, the American strain of democracy looks like, and it was thought that like you can't have a free society where people are debating in secret. But I don't know, I did some reading about like the history of anti-secret society sentiment, and it seems like courts always seem to land on the side of that you can have secrets. And that there's so many examples of like secrecy being good for liberty in a way. If you think about like the Underground Railroad, that's a secret society, like, but the main fear with secret society is people like with their actual like arms at the levers of power, like those people having a secret society that America is inherently distrustful of. We want our politics to be done in the open.
I mean, most of the judges who would be making Supreme Court decisions were themselves members of secret societies and or fraternities. Like, that's very common.
Yeah, So, yeah, they survived this era of hate. But what that pressure did is it kind of, I think, made there be a small amount of secret societies, but then fraternities kind of cleaved themselves off of that and said, we're still going to have a few little secrets, but you can come into our house if you're invited.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we get into the Civil War. And actually during the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln passed the Morrill Act, which is known as like the Land Grant Act. And so this increased just the number of universities in America. And so that would later kind of help grow the whole fraternity movement after the Civil War.
You know, something I learned this week about the Civil War is a lot of Civil War veterans, they brought hazing practices into fraternities. Like that's where it kind of came from.
Yeah, no, there's always this back and forth between military traditions and fraternity traditions. I heard a really good anti-hazing explanation from a brother of mine in the fraternity. He said that like he was in the ROTC and they haze you there. They're allowed to. The United States military, that's the one like hazing thing that's always kind of allowed. And he said that with hazing, your goal is to break everyone down to the same person. In the military, you want everyone to be an inexchangeable unit. Uniqueness offers no benefit on the battlefield. You want everyone to behave in the same predictable way in a stressful situation. And so you do that through hazing. And he said the goals of fraternity are entirely the opposite of that. You don't want to break everyone down to the exact same thing. Like it should be a diversity of opinions and types of guys bound together by values, but still individuals. And so that's like the best take I've seen of just like why hazing is not good. I mean, life safety above all else, but also like they undermine the mission of a fraternity.
Yeah, I'm sure hazing will come up a few times throughout the episode, but I'm very anti-hazing because I, just through living in Chicago and growing up here, already had plenty of traumatic experiences prior to college. And I feel like all of these like sheltered suburban kids who join fraternities, they really like the idea that they're suddenly having traumatic experiences and trauma bonding.
Yeah.
And I just can't relate. It's like, why would you do that to yourself or want it?
Yeah, it's like brute forcing a way to get to know each other. Like it is a widely known thing that if you are traumatized together, you'll have a bond. But like it takes a little bit longer, but if you just get to know each other through good things, you can also like form a close friendship. But yeah, there's that line between like adversity and then just abuse, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, after the war, Alpha Tau Omega was founded in 1865 with the express purpose of uniting the country post-Civil War with Christian brotherly love.
Yeah. A lot of fraternities had more religious roots than people probably realize. They retain house prayers, and they might have some sort of homages to Christianity, but even the ones that are more expressly religious have become more secular over time.
Yeah. I forget what fraternity it is, but they still have a cross like on their heraldry, on their coat of arms. And it just always makes that decision very easy for me of like, yeah, I'm not really a part of things that have crosses on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, in my fraternity, like I think swearing in, either as a pledge or an active, I forget. But we had to choose a book to swear onto. And I chose the Torah. We had one on hand, luckily. But I know a guy who pledged on Newton's Philosophy Naturalis Principia Mathematica, which I think would be kind of like lame and heredity, but he's literally a rocket scientist. Like that's the one person who can do that. And he's a great guy in general, of course, too. But yeah, so I thought it was very cool.
Yeah. I mean, Isaac Newton was far more religious and kind of superstitious than people realize. He spent a lot of his career actually dabbling in alchemy.
Yeah, he had like an esoteric personal understanding of Christianity, which is always like kind of like Sufjan Stevens, you know, I would say, of his time.
And did you know there are relics of him that were preserved?
Isn't his finger hovering around somewhere? No, Galileo's finger is out there.
No, there are relics of Isaac Newton, and they're on display at some sort of, I think it's either a library or like some sort of educational institution, but yeah, they turned parts of his body into holy relics because he was, you know, a figure in science very early on when science and religion weren't quite separated yet.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I guess I have that retroactively applied, like science and religion being different. But at that time, like it made sense of like, yeah, this man touched a great amount of knowledge. We should chop him into pieces and distribute him.
Yeah, no, I mean, when he was alive, what he was doing was considered natural philosophy. The word science wasn't even really being used.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so expansion in this period was through the system of national organizations distributing charters to new chapters. So if you were just a group of guys who liked each other on a college campus, you could kind of shop around to different national fraternities, or maybe they'd come to you. You'd be able to obtain a charter, and then with that, you'd get all these kind of like ready-made symbols. You'd get your Greek letters, and you'd get kind of like a orientation from a national organization. You're well on your way.
National organizations, they help keep the Greek system alive into the present day. Because in the event that a chapter gets banned, say for 10 years, the national organization will then step in once those 10 years are up and reestablish it. And they also kind of take on some of the blame and some of the responsibility. So say a student gets hurt or like dies in a hazing incident, because the accountability is split between the university itself, frat brothers, the frat chapter, and the national organization for the fraternity, it becomes more difficult to place blame on any one part of the equation.
Yeah. A good national organization should set up its local chapters with risk management practices and things to avoid that, but they can also help fraternities navigate like difficult situations. Yeah, I've heard cases of after a fraternity is kicked off campus, like those guys will then get together and just find a new charter for a different fraternity. Like I was told a story about a chapter of a fraternity that was made out of former SIGEPs who were kicked off for hazing, and then former Pi Kappa Alphas who were kicked off for cocaine. So with those two combined, you got a new chapter.
Yeah.
I guess it's maybe hard to vet these guys or background search them to see if they were part of defunct fraternities, but also they must have turned that around pretty fast. They must have only been like sophomores at those outgoing fraternities and then juniors in the incoming ones.
Yeah. No, I'm sure they were outstanding.
Yes. And then we'll talk about, the kind of current post-World War II state of fraternities. But it was a big challenge. Like there wasn't this, like with the Civil War, that was a boon to fraternities. World War II was not actually in the end. So fraternities had to reinvent themselves in a rather interesting way.
Yeah. Fraternities, they reached their lowest point in the 70s, and they didn't see enrollment rise again until, say, the 80s for reasons I want to talk about later.
Yeah.
But now fraternities are having their highest membership levels ever. And we'll get to why, but Generation Z, they're not shying away from fraternities.
Yeah. So yeah, in summary, the different like types of fraternities. So the ones we're going to talk about mostly are, the collegiate, social fraternities, and sororities. These are all kind of downstream from Kappa Alpha in 1825. These are the ones where the socializing is the point.
Yeah. Yeah, and these are the ones that are kind of a mix of dining clubs, literary societies, and secret orders that I talked about.
Yeah, synthesis of those.
Yeah.
And then there's academic and professional organizations. So these kind of owe their origins to Phi Beta Kappa. So that was like an aunt, and that functions today as an honor society, and that's co-ed. And they don't live together. And really the purpose is like academics. And that also extends to professional fraternities. So like Alpha Kappa Psi is for business, Phi Kappa Delta is for law. There's also one for engineering. And these are, again, like co-ed, and they're focused kind of straddling college times when you get involved in them, but then it follows you throughout your professional career, and it's something to connect you to other professionals.
Yeah. My younger sister was actually in a co-ed fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega, and she's not like the fraternity or sorority type. Like, she has a nose piercing, and all of my siblings were surprised that she joined it. And she liked it because she described it as being a service fraternity based off the Boy Scouts. And apparently at one point in the fraternity's history, you couldn't join unless you had had an experience in a scouting organization.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's actually the biggest fraternity in the U.S. It has a presence right now on over 786 campuses. And there are over 500,000 alumni, so it is a great network.
Yeah. A lot of social fraternities really try and like show their service capabilities, but it's not as much as an actual like service-oriented professional fraternity.
No, I read somewhere like the numbers were broke down and they were like averaged out to like one service hour. Like per fraternity brother.
No, because national organizations toss out this huge number of how many service hours, but if you do the math on members, it doesn't come out amazingly.
Not super high.
Yeah. I had a friend who was a part of a business frat at a small school that kind of functioned as a social fraternity because their school didn't allow social fraternities. So they had an apartment that a lot of them lived in, and he got hazed straight up by a business frat. So yeah, that's a weird like kind of convergent evolution, I guess, or it's like falling back into social fraternities. And then secret societies. These grew out of that literary societies thing, but it's defined by, you guessed it, secrecy. The most famous of which being the Skull and Bones Society.
Yeah. They're way less secret, though, than I realized, because they actually have a physical building in New Haven, Connecticut. It's called the Tomb, and it looks like a mausoleum. Yeah. And so if you walk past it, like, it's not even like there's a fence. It's not in this like very secluded area. Wow. Like, it's very evident that this organization exists.
Yeah, and then like if the plumbing goes wrong or something, they're gonna have to have a plumber in there, and I'm doubting he's like a Skull and Bones plumber. So like, yeah, I don't know. It feels like the jig is up when it comes to secret buildings. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's also a lot smaller than I realized. Like, they only admit 15 seniors per year at Yale University. Yeah. And that actually makes, George Bush and Senior being part of it more impressive.
Yeah. And more
more concerning.
More concerning.
Yeah. But yeah, one reason that colleges permitted Greek life to emerge as an institution is because they'd much rather have that than actual secret societies, because they can get into the affairs of Greek life organizations and monitor them much more easily than they can organizations like, say, Skull and Bones, which 100%. At one point they actually collected human bones.
Oh, geez. I guess it's in the name, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so there's like what I'd call non-collegiate fraternal groups. This is like Freemasons, Knights of Columbus, and Shriners. So these are like, you can probably be a part of them that early, but they're really focused on your post-collegiate life. Freemasons, we could do a whole episode on. It goes back to Europe. It is like so old. And I always really put them close together to like Knights of Columbus. But specifically, Knights of Columbus came from like an immigrant mutual benefit society. So it might like look like masonry on the outside, but it's from much, much humbler origins. It has no connection to royalty or anything. It's just fellow like Catholic immigrants trying to pull each other up.
Yeah, mutual aid. Mm-hmm. And then next, we can start to talk about the characteristics of fraternities and sororities. The first one being values, ethics, and codes. Yeah.
Fraternities, like, they should call themselves, and they are like a value-based organization, which I think is a good name, like if you actually own up to it, if you actually like embody the values. So yeah, fraternities will have a publicly facing like list of values, usually like a nice even number of them. And they're all kind of the same usually. It's a lot of honesty, integrity, brotherhood, maybe like some fun secret third thing, Yeah. But yeah, it's a code of ethics is a common thing.
They're well-intentioned, but they're oftentimes actually weaponized as part of the hazing process. If a pledge doesn't memorize the house code, they then get punished, which they'll make up other reasons to punish them anyways, even if they don't memorize it. But it's used, for that most of the time.
Yeah, in like modern understandings of hazing, like even scavenger hunts can be considered hazing. So like memorization tasks are sometimes like the last thing left. You can like, I don't know, you can explain to a school, yeah, I'm sorry, we made guys remember like 10 things, but it's the punishment there. That is the hazing, the actual task. Like, yeah, you got to ask something of people.
Yeah. And then another big characteristic, so Greek letters. So I feel like Greek life is responsible for Americans having any familiarity with an alphabet other than English because, they know alpha, beta, delta, so on. But I feel like Americans, other than beta, they have no concept of what the order is.
Yeah.
Like every letter increasingly just sounds more fanciful and important. So it's like they get used in pop culture and no one really gets the difference between, say, gamma and omicron.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of omicrons in Greek organizations. I think it's maybe one of the more unpopular ones.
Because it's wordy.
Yeah. A lot of alphas in there, of course. You want to be at the beginning of the alphabet,
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some social fraternities that don't have Greek letters. There's Acacia, there's Farmhouse, and there's Triangle fraternity. Farmhouse I did a quick search on because I just think it's an interesting, I was wondering like, they capitalize the H in it. It just seems kind of modern in that way. But no, it's very old, and that is their original name back to like 1905. It was actually a pejorative. So they were a group of like agriculture majors, and they were being teased by other students who said like, oh, that's the farmhouse over there where the farmers live. And they took it up on themselves. I think that's nice. But then I found out they do have 2 hazing deaths on their roster. So unfortunate.
Yeah. I founded an active fraternity called Scarab, where their symbol was what I presume is from like ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, no. There's some Masonic rites that are like very Egyptian inspired. The Shriners are very like Muslim inspired as well. I imagine it came out of that period of Egyptomania around like Tut's tomb and stuff like that, and like 1920s Egyptian revival architecture as well.
Yeah. And then colors.
Yeah, so like any social fraternity will have its own like colors. Some of them are rough. I mean, like, sorry, purple and yellow. I would not join that. Like, not that you have to wear them for the rest of your life or anything, but definitely for 4 years.
I mean, the colors that they use, the combinations are just as garish as sports teams. Like, what can you expect from frat guys? They're not going to have like teal and beige or anything interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like more classic. I like White Sox. I like black and white,
Yeah. No, I feel like one of the best frat color combinations is red and white. That's going to be featured on our cover photo for this episode.
That's a good one. And then heraldry. So I'm pretty sure that every Greek letter organization also has what's technically called a heraldic achievement, but which I think like the layman would call a coat of arms or a crest.
Yeah. These coats of arms, they oftentimes feature knights, which seems very ahistorical because the oldest fraternities are only 100 or 200 years old and have nothing to do with medieval Europe.
Yeah, it's another like American way of signaling to like an older past and trying to graft ourselves onto history. Yeah, when I was initiated, our like coat of arms was explained to us through heraldic like terminology. Like there's a whole way to describe things. I just remember they describe what's on the right side as indexter chief. And then in Sinister Chief is the left side. But yeah, it was one of the drier parts of initiation. That's not a secret, I don't think, either. Yeah, every place has, coat of arms.
Yeah. And then fraternities, they oftentimes have apparel and jewelry. Oftentimes this is with badges, right?
Yeah, so for active members, there's often a badge. I still have mine. It's squirreled away here somewhere in my apartment. It's solid gold, which is cool. So like you have like, fees for joining, for initiating in a fraternity. And I imagine a lot of that just goes to gold in that. But yeah, they're expected to be worn at like formal events. We'd always say like, oh, it's a badge attire night. So that means like suit, jacket, tie.
I'm actually surprised that they don't require fraternity brothers to wear their letters more often than they do. But it kind of makes sense because I think a lot of university professors will discriminate against frat brothers, or at least some of them will, because they're like, oh, these guys, they don't take their classes seriously, and then they're more likely to notice if they show up drunk to class.
Yes, exactly. It is funny to see like groups of guys all wearing their letters like seated together in the back of a class. Like I think I'd try to be a little acknowledging of that, like, oh, come on guys, we can't be in the back row, that's a bad look. Like let's sit a little towards the front, not too up close, but like balance. Another thing is no drinking in your letters. That's a common thing, especially for sororities. They just don't want that kind of bad press.
Like even at the frat house?
So fraternity guys will always drink in their letters. Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
sorority is often very strict about that. It's a thing we'll talk about more, but there's often just a very strict, like, moral self-enforcement in sororities that fraternities do not bother themselves with.
Yeah. And then another type of jewelry that is worn by pledges, it's pledge pins. And these are given to them sort of as another way of, finding excuses to punish them and haze them. Because if they lose their pledge pin, it's a big deal. Like sometimes that will get them kicked out of a frat if they lose it.
Not the case in mine. But yeah, you had to wear your pledge pin. It was just a bit like for that semester to show that like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm involved in this fraternity here at an early stage. And they're not made of solid gold. They're just enamel.
But they do look really cool.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, and then in fraternity traditions, another common one is like fraternity songs. These are often kind of lame, I would say. At their best, they're just kind of like barbershop style songs that I imagine are from like early mid-century America, when that is what popular music sounded like. And then at their worst, it would be like SAE, that fraternity, got caught for singing a super racist song on a bus on video. And SAE is the one extant fraternity that was founded in like antebellum South. So yeah, they come with their own kind of additional layer of
Yeah. And I bet there are also songs that are very vulgar and sexually explicit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then in terms of traditions, secrets.
Yeah. Secrets. They're not actually usually as cool as they sound because they're often just like what a secret motto is or what certain letters stand for. It's not like a big secret that's being kept from the public. It only really relates to the history of the fraternity.
Yeah. Handshakes. There's always a handshake, but there's really not that many like possible secret handshakes. So like I think they're all operating probably within the same three, I'd say.
Are the handshakes that secret though? Like the established brothers, do they not do the handshakes in front of the pledges?
Yes. There's often like a way to discreetly hide it or something. But yeah, it does feel cool to get it, definitely.
Yeah.
We had, this is not a secret, but we had a house office. It was just like one room that we kept a lot of like boring fraternity stuff in. But it's technically like a secret that you can't go to until you're inactive. So once we were all initiated, we all went up there and looked at it, and it's just a boring room filled with old papers and stuff. But we're like, whoa, we did it. We're in the house office.
Yeah, probably a 1990s computer that doesn't work.
Literally that. I'm pretty sure there was like a gray computer there. Yeah. That was actually where I got to see cool old fraternity photos, though. Just ones that weren't out in like scrapbooks and stuff. There was great photos of brothers in the 1920s wearing raccoon skin coats, which was the coolest thing to wear as a fraternity brother in the 1920s.
Still cool now.
Yeah. So this is not every fraternity, but some of them will have like house fathers or house mothers, which is an actual adult who lives in the house to try and like, engender good values into the brothers.
Which seems like a great idea to reduce all of the problems fraternities have, but I bet universities don't universally require them because I'm sure they increase the dues that students need to pay.
Yeah. I think it's probably one of those cases where like the ones that don't need them have them. Like better behaved fraternities that would be willing to have an adult there are the ones that aren't going to cause problems, and the ones that do have hazing problems are not going to want a like adult, which is essentially a liability for them, in the house. Not during my time, but from like I think the like 50s to the 80s, there was an elderly British woman living in our fraternity house who tried to engender good table manners to the brothers. So we still had all these rules about like no hats at the dining table, and then we tried to keep that going with new traditions. So like no phones at the table as well. Women eat first, another thing too. So if it's buffet style, no one could eat until like someone's girlfriend went in line first. And every woman hates that. Basically, like it's kind of like the worst etiquette where it's something that makes people uncomfortable. And the whole purpose of etiquette is to make everyone feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And then my aunt on my Irish Catholic side was a like house mother, not live in, but like essentially a faculty advisor, which is another position for a sorority at the school she worked at. And I think her role was largely just like advising girls on academics, like professional choices, and consoling them through breakups. What was funny though is that it was a sorority that when she joined it, it was pretty like mainline, but then it just kind of essentially became a Jewish sorority over time. So it was her consoling all these like suburban Jewish girls on their first breakup, which was really cute.
Yeah. I dated a guy who I think did something similar because he was a graduate of U of I, and then he got a job in Urbana-Champaign. He stayed there for like 1 or 2 years after college. And so he had this like designated role where he would go back to the fraternity house periodically, maybe even to lead meetings.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, there's many different roles that alumni can play, or even non-alumni. Like it
Yeah.
sounds like that woman couldn't have been a part of that frat.
No. Yeah, I guess that sounds like a faculty advisor position. One of the fraternities on my campus had a really cool faculty advisor who was a gay guy who dressed in steampunk. I don't think he was a member of the frat when he was an undergrad or anything, but I don't know. I thought that would have been a cool get for us.
Yeah.
We saw him smoking his pipe outside.
Was he a professor in something mechanical, like mechanical engineering?
No, he was a professor he taught a variety of classes, the most interesting being history of Middle Earth, which sold out essentially or got filled up every year because it was like a very fun class, apparently.
Yeah. And then another feature of fraternities is that they always have a 2-part vetting process. Before this week, I was familiar with the word rushing because of Rush Talk, which we'll talk about. But rushing is the first part. It usually lasts a week, and it's the fun part. Usually fraternities and sororities, they have big parties, and that's how they lure them in. And then pledging is the less fun part. That usually lasts a couple of months.
Yeah.
And so that's when the freshmen who've been offered an invitation, they have to prove themselves. And that's when all the hazing happens.
Yeah. So I can speak definitely a lot to the rushing process. I was VP of recruitment for my fraternity for a year. It's a lot of fun. We had dry rush at my school. So we didn't have parties to attract guys. We had events like trampoline dodgeball, where we'd all pile into cars and go to a like trampoline place in the suburbs and play dodgeball. Yeah, it was fun. It's interesting. It's like, how much can you get to know someone in a week? You know, you're just kind of drilling them lightly. You're trying to have fun conversation, but finding out about like their interests, their background. And then you try and like connect them to an active brother who has like, oh, you guys both played baseball in high school. Talk about that. You're from this suburb. Talk about that. It has a weird overlap with like flirting and dating, honestly.
Yeah.
And I always tell guys that, like, imagine you're trying to really win these guys over.
The closest I ever got to that was when I was on the diving team with only one teammate. And so when I saw cute boys in the school, I'd be like, oh, do you want to join the diving team?
Yeah, you're Russian people.
Yeah. But was it really that hard to get people to rush or to then pledge and join the fraternity? Because it's kind of a seller's market right now. You know, they're more popular than ever.
Yeah, you would think. I think at big schools, it's easy. Like, it's basically super selective. And like the guys rushing have to really make a case for themselves. At a small, nerdy tech school, it's a hard sell to a lot of guys. Very big, like first generation student population. So a lot of parents are very wary of fraternities. I noticed that at my school. There was a lot of guys who were really interested. I had phone calls with parents. I had to do that to really like sell them on it and convince them that it's not like a cult of some kind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you'd have a lot of students who are like already committed to a very rigorous like sport, even though we were D3, you know, or a very like specifically rigorous like co-terminal program, or like they were pre-med. Yeah. Whenever I heard pre-med, I was always like, I don't think is going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The hardest thing about like rushing is you're only working with the guys the school gives you. You know, so you're really kind of beholden to their recruitment ahead of that. Like, are they recruiting like social, interesting, well-rounded guys who would want to be a part of my fraternity? Tech schools, maybe. I would say
no,
sometimes.
they're recruiting stem cells.
Yeah, largely. Oh, speaking of cells, I had the chance to talk to some active fraternity members. I had some brothers in town for a wedding, and I went back to the old fraternity house for the first time in a while. And they said that one of the sororities on campus, they're all fem cells there. I was like, I don't think that's true. I couldn't really get them to elaborate more on that, but I thought it was really funny. I don't know. Like, it's just weird stuff I know about now. It's like, oh, I guess that is happening on college campuses too.
Yeah. Like, internet phenomena is starting to kind of seep into fraternities and sororities, which are not very online.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess like in my fraternity, we always like, oh, we don't want to be seen as the nerd fraternity, you know, but like, I definitely don't want to be seen as the incel fraternity. That would be very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a lot of effort to make like rush week look effortless. But we would, in the morning, we'd get up, I would make coffee for everyone. We have a meeting at 7 a.m. where we'd go through a slideshow of all the guys we've been talking to at events. And so we'd have their name on there. We'd have a photo we stole from Facebook in order to like put a face to the name. And we just talk about like, all right, we have good experiences with this guy. Like, do we want to like, who is in charge of inviting him to the next event? That was the big thing to suss out as well.
You know what that reminds me of? There's a scene in Animal House where they show the face of Flounder, who's like sort of he's pledging and no one likes him. But all of the frat brothers, when they see his face, they scream and then they throw beer at the screen.
Never experienced that personally, I wouldn't say. They wouldn't even make it to the slideshow, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah. Sometimes we had to take sneaky photos of guys if they didn't have Facebook and stuff. So we'd try and like sneak a photo of them at an event and then like blow it up on the screen.
Yeah.
This guy.
You didn't ask to take a picture of him?
We could do that too if we were smart. Yeah. So no. It's a lot going on. So yeah, fraternity houses, the actual like physical buildings. I think they're an interesting subset of architecture. They're not multifamily, I wouldn't say. If it's a good enough fraternity, you should feel like a family. So it's actually a single family home, I'd say, in that way.
Yeah. It is an instance where society tolerates shared living facilities, which we on average do not as much as we should.
No, not
But like they have shared bathrooms, shared kitchens, because like I never went to the frat house for your frat, but actually I had a friend who went to your school and I went to a frat house on your campus. And I was surprised by how it looked. Like it kind of felt a bit prison-esque, but with more stuff on the walls. Like I went to use the bathroom and like there wasn't soap and it was kind of gross.
Unfortunate. Yeah. So the first fraternity houses were not purpose-built in any way. They were often like old mansions that were just kind of carved up and used as fraternity houses. My fraternity, our first house was like that. And then it was torn down during urban renewal and the school gave us a new house on campus.
Which is very South Side.
Yeah.
A lot of urban renewal.
Yeah. I'm sure that happened in a lot of other like Midwestern places, like Midwestern cities more so. I find, small like college towns often have the frat castle that you're picturing. Basically very like Greek revival architecture or at least Victorian or something.
Yeah. Because even if like a frat is operating out of a repurposed old mansion, or if it's a purpose-built frat, they typically have Greek columns on the outside, or at least that's the Platonic ideal of a frat house that I picture in my mind. And it's one of the best use cases for neoclassical architecture, because if you're already going to put Greek letters on the outside of a building, it might as well reference architecturally ancient Greece.
Yeah. I think like fraternity houses must be keeping like neoclassical architecture firms in business, because there's only so many courthouses get built every year, so you must be able to pick up some good frat house stuff.
Universities in general too, like Notre Dame's campus, there's a lot of new buildings that are in a architectural revival style.
Yeah, keeping stone quarries in business, definitely.
Yeah.
Some like kind of like interesting alternative fraternity houses I've seen. In Texas, there was an old motel that was turned into a fraternity house. They used the lobby as their like meeting room, but then everyone's room just opened into the outside like a motel, which I think must be kind of strange, but I think the weather's good enough in Austin for that.
Do you think the students had cars, or more likely
to? Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, very like car
so it's functional.
Yeah, very Sunbelt frat living, I guess.
Yeah.
And then in Michigan, there was an old church that was turned into a fraternity. I thought that was cool.
That's cool. It's a frat house that kind of got built, kind of didn't get built. Mies van der Rohe actually designed a frat house for Indiana University.
Wow, the Miesian frat house. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, it was commissioned. The fraternity at the time, they didn't have enough money in the 1960s to build it. The plans got tossed aside and then rediscovered. And then some benefactors of the school, they decided to fund a new building for the arts department on campus for $20 million, which I feel like is kind of a waste because it looks like so many 1960s campus buildings in Chicago.
Yeah, I guess it just has built-in air conditioning. So that's nice. That's the one thing differentiating it from early mid-mod.
No, I read an article about it and they did modify the designs to have modern features like that and some others. Yeah. But overall, it's like, it doesn't look new. Like that's kind of a waste.
No, it's, people call it zombie architecture, where you like, build an architect's plans after their death. It's been done with Frank Lloyd Wright. It feels like, this project could have gone to a younger architect or just at least someone alive, I would say. I mean, people still got to work on it, of course, and it takes a lot of work to get those paper plans back into the real world. But yeah, and it's not even living its original purpose. That's also unfortunate as well, too.
Yeah, I'm surprised it got built because, the architectural community, they hate when a dead architect's designs get used. Like historic preservation foundations, they actually have like sections on the website where they're like frequently asked questions, like why don't, say the unbuilt designs of Frank Lloyd Wright get built? And they're like, no, we don't support that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I guess people care less when it's in Indiana. You're a little like safe from the architecture establishment maybe out there.
Yeah. I do love that we talk about like the architecture in random Midwestern cities just naturally like this.
No, I maybe on New York-based podcasts they talk about more obscure parts of like like upstate New York or just the broader like sleepier parts of the East Coast. But yeah, we get to talk about Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is an interesting way to look at fraternity houses. If done correctly, they are affordable housing. Lowercase a, affordable housing, not uppercase A, like government affordable housing.
Yeah. I mean, people talk about, or at least I read online, people complain about fraternity dues. They're like, oh, they're so expensive. But the most they cost is, say, $1,000 per quarter or semester. And they're more often much lower than that. And they oftentimes, sometimes they even out to being cheaper than student housing that's run by the school.
Yeah. A lot of times, like, they'll include a meal plan. There'll be like a minute. If you don't live in the house, you'll have like kind of a visiting brother meal plan sometimes. Often rarely enforced. No one's going to be like, hey, don't eat that burger. You've hit 10 this semester.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, at my campus, like fraternity living was cheaper than on campus. And then like, depending on how, if you're eating rice and beans, I guess like living off campus would be cheaper. But it was a good deal. In fact, like, people talk about buying your friends and stuff, but I think sometimes we were concerned about guys who only seemed interested once they saw the like financial package and how cheap it was. And so you gotta watch out for that if you go too low.
Yeah. And it's a good investment because people who were members of fraternities, they make 36% more on average over the course of their lives than people who are not members of fraternities.
Yeah, totally make that back. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of like fraternity houses are off campus, where they can party as hard as they want. But there's an interesting subsection of fraternity houses that are actually on campus. Like Northwestern has a like fraternity and sorority quad where everyone's all kind of nestled together. I think that's a very cool like city flavored type of fraternal living. Because I think that like fraternity houses, like in the way you picture them, are in college towns. Like I was talking to someone who was in a sorority in New York City and they had like a penthouse, I guess, like at their campus, which sounds crazy in New York. Like, but I think it was just like a meeting space or something. But yeah, it feels, very like small town coded.
Yeah. I mean, I'm most familiar with my university, which was in the Loop, and the other surrounding universities in the Loop. And there's no space for a fraternity row there or anything like that.
Can't be done.
Which, we should mention that. Fraternity row.
Yeah, the houses are often clustered together. Yeah, like frat house after frat house. I mean, it makes sense. I don't like, there's often like a professor's row, in college towns. And I don't think they want to be right next to fraternities. That would be unideal.
Yeah, having them all lined up like that, I don't think they were probably planned with the intention of students stumbling home drunk, but it makes it a lot safer.
Yeah. Sometimes like a lot of times these houses were built like early 1900s, maybe late 1800s, and they're very like close to campus, but then these campuses have grown a lot. So you'll end up with interesting like land swap deals where a school will buy a fraternity's land and then like give them a new house, like but on campus or somewhere else. Sometimes these are done with 99-year leases, which I always thought was very weird, but it's actually a very like established like thing that goes back to British common law. And basically you use a 99-year lease when you want to have ultimate control of something, but you don't want to be involved in its operations or management. And so that perfectly reflects how schools often feel about fraternities. Like, we want the final say. We want to be able to kick you off, but we don't want to replace your pipes.
Interesting. Yeah, because like oftentimes fraternities, they're filling a niche that the university could provide, but it's more convenient if there's another organization, kind of subsidizing student housing, because alumni contribute a lot of money to their fraternities and to the schools themselves. And so that money that alumni contribute is kind of subsidizing student housing.
Yeah. Like schools definitely like, providing housing can be profitable, but it can also be a loss because especially after the recession, a lot of schools wanted to greatly increase their enrollment, but they didn't really want to build more housing in that time and risk, a decrease in enrollment and having this big physical asset to maintain. So with that, like you're kind of, fraternity houses are serving as a blow-off valve or essentially like assuming risk that the school doesn't want to. Yeah. But it creates this, so we'll get into this interesting like interreliance between school and fraternities.
Yeah. And then I think we should talk about sororities a bit. So what are your thoughts on sororities?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't in one, but yeah, I don't know. It's very fascinating looking in. Like, I, of course, knew a lot of sorority girls like going to college, and a lot of people had very positive experiences. Like I had mine, but I think I heard more like bad cases from sororities than I heard bad cases from fraternities. You know, like every so often you'll meet a guy who's like, yeah, I was part of a fraternity, but I quit. I like de-brothered myself. Like, but I've heard a lot of girls who are like, yeah, no, I like handed in my badge, like I was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that at like very big state schools, like sororities are just a different beast entirely. They're hyper competitive. Like Rush is just the center of life. And there can often be a lot of like, as I said earlier, kind of like a self-policing, a lot of like internal gender policing, I guess, being done in sororities that can ruffle a lot of feathers.
I don't know if I can speak to that at all, but yeah, I don't think they seem as toxic to me just as someone who doesn't drink. Like, I don't think I would be, subjected to the hazing rituals that would almost kill me.
Yeah, no. But no, I've also heard a lot of good sorority experiences. Like I had a friend, she described her sorority as very like down, like very earthy and granola. Like it was a lot of girls who just like hung out and smoked weed and would go on hikes on the weekends. And that sounds like a great time,
Yeah.
I guess for them. But that's in opposition to the like blonde, tan, like top tier sorority, always angling to not be seen as a bottom tier one.
Yeah. Because sororities, they do select for appearance a bit more than fraternities do.
Yeah.
Fraternities do seek out members that they perceive to be successful with women who can get the most girls. And that is sort of correlated to appearance. But sororities even more so, they want members that are hot.
Yeah. This is what was nice about going to a small, like engineering-oriented school. Like not a lot of women, not a lot of chances of them. So it felt like we were choosing guys based on just like good to hang out with,
Yeah. But yeah, when I think about sororities, I think about rush talk. So with the advent of TikTok, sororities have started to use TikTok to promote their sororities, and they will make these really elaborate videos where there are dozens, sometimes hundreds of women, and they're all like busting out all of their extracurricular skills that they gained throughout high school, like gymnastics and dance and cheerleading, because they're fresh out of high school. They can still do flips and things like that. So
Yeah.
they're doing the most.
No, it's terrifying. Like I am overcome with like a fight or flight response when I see these like videos. It's like they're like objectively beautiful women, but they're just like flailing around and looking at you dead-eyed. Like,
yeah. And there's this one thing they do in a lot of their videos is they'll bust out like lights. I don't know if they're phone cameras, but they'll start waving them back and forth hypnotically. And it's kind of strange.
The earliest form of these were just like they do this like slapping and clapping like songs. These predate social media, I think, but like they would do this like to kind of like beckon girls in for Rush or something. I don't know. I didn't go to a SEC or like a Southern school. But yeah, and specifically for Southern schools, like some of these girls were in high school sororities, which is a whole world entirely. Yeah, no, it's a thing, mostly just in the South. But yeah, and so like when you're in this rush process, they're weighing, yes, how attractive you are, if your mom went there, if you went to the right high school ahead of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, this week I learned how competitive the rushing process is for sororities at Alabama University.
Yeah.
And they have to make a resume before they rush. They have to apply to rush.
Wow.
It's then a 3-step process where they also they utilize the university stadium as part of it.
Oh my God. That's crazy. Yeah, no, people at bigger schools, like girls saying like, yeah, no, of course I don't know every girl in my sorority. That'd be crazy. No one can remember 150 names. It's 150.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too crazy to me. I mean, my high school class had like 225 people. I feel like I knew 200 of them at least.
Oh, wow. No, also something I've seen in a sorority is this weird architectural quirk called a cold dorm. You ever heard about this?
No, what is that?
So this is where all the girls sleep together in one large room with bunk beds. And then so it's a series of like bunk beds in there, and it's just used for sleeping. And everyone has like a dop kit of like all like a toiletry bag of all their stuff because there's like bathrooms right over there. But then girls have rooms, but they don't have beds in them. It's just like an office basically. I think it's very intelligent land use wise. Like having a bed in every room really grows the size of each room. So I think it's an interesting like space solution, and it's also like coming out of the fact of like it would be the coolest room in the house. I think it'd be not in the basement. I don't know, but they would handle it ventilation wise. to get you through like the warmest parts of the year. But yeah, not something you see in any other form of architecture.
But if there's even one girl that snores,
yeah, exactly. It ruins the whole thing. Like, how do phone alarms work? I guess everyone's on vibrate. Like, but yeah, when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is something I've never seen before.
Yeah. And then something I didn't see before this week. So I've seen some Rush Talk videos, but I found one where it's a Lorax Rush Talk video. And this really piqued my interest because you aren't on TikTok, but have you ever heard of the concept of popular girl humor?
No, but I can kind of put it together in my mind. It's like jokes that only work if you're incredibly popular.
Well, it's basically just how popular girls, yes, they try to be funny, but it's oftentimes in a generic or overplayed way. And so apparently for Gen Z, it's been a trend in high schools, colleges for hot girls to dress up as the Lorax. And it's kind of like an ugly Halloween costume, but it's also funny.
Yeah, I think this is my little like armchair theory of like surplus femininity, where you're just showing that like you are so hot that like you can even be dressed up as the Lorax and still be like attractive. It's just showing how much you're working with at a base. It's like, I could do anything and I'm still hot.
Yeah. I mean, the boy version of that is when you see preppy guys for Halloween, they get the cheapest Halloween costume possible. Like they just dress up like a hot dog. Yeah. And it's like them signaling like, oh, I'm already cool. I don't need to try on Halloween.
Yes. Yeah. It's very, like showing low effort, basically.
But there's been a evolution actually in popular girl Halloween costumes because Mr. Babinski was the big thing this year.
From Coraline?
Yeah. Do you know the guy?
Yeah. He's like gross. He's wearing a stretched out wife beater and he's got like a mustache.
Yeah, because he's wearing a white beater with stains and he has like armpit hair. So if you are going for ugly, that is the next level.
Yeah, that's the final boss. That was crazy. Yeah, so while we were saying that like it's hard to find really crazy prices for fraternity dues, as they're called, sororities, you can really go crazy with these.
Yeah, they're more expensive apparently.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama University, it seems like a pretty exceptional example because their houses alone are like the biggest I've seen.
Oh yeah, they're sprawling. Apparently Florida has some huge ones too, but I think that's just like Southern frat culture mixing with like Sunbelt land use, I guess. So you just get very large buildings.
Yeah.
But yeah, so using about Alabama as the benchmark for pledging. This is not living in the house. Yeah, this is just dues.
This is a one-time fee, I think, for becoming
one
a
semester, $5,532 as a high. That's crazy.
Yeah, I know college students are broke, but I don't know why. These numbers don't really shock me when I factor in that this results in a 36% bump in income over your entire life.
Yeah,
like it seems like it's worth it.
Time value of money. You got to spend that money there. I don't know. My fraternity was very forgiving. We had payment plans. We had to send a brother to collections once, actually, because we were so generous to a point, I guess.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was your experience like being in a fraternity in terms of like things you haven't talked about already?
Broadly pro. Like I had a great experience. Like again, the big caveat to this is small nerdy school. I actually kind of think that like the original values of fraternities, like brotherhood, academic rigor, all that stuff is easier at a less glamorous, small, focused school as opposed to these big state schools with tons of distractions and drinking and like hypersexual competition between fraternities and sororities. Yeah, if I went to a big school like that, I don't really know if I'd join a fraternity. My first experience with fraternities was not great. My sister was in college and I was a senior in high school and I visited her and we went to an off-campus frat party and I got like accosted by a very drunk and probably coked up fraternity brother. In my mind, he had cocaine under his nose, but that could just be me embellishing with time. And he was giving me the classic fraternity brother phrase of, "Who do you know here?" Yeah, and I was like, this sucks. Like, I'm never going to do this.
Yeah, that would freak out any 18-year-old.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily, just all fraternities say at big state schools, at top 10 or like Big 10 schools. It's really the top tier fraternities. This is something I learned from Alexandra Robbins' book. But the mid-tier ones and lower tier ones, those are actually the ones that are more academically focused, where they do community service. Yeah. The top tier ones are the ones where like they go to extreme lengths to like get the most girls and get the most drunk and have the most hazing.
It just seems like such diminishing returns. Like I'd love to be a part of a mid-tier fraternity, maybe at a state school.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I think this was like after I graduated, but my grandma told me a story of she was visiting a fraternity party when she was in school in the early 60s. It was just like an open party, anyone could come, and she was kind of like taken aback by this, and because she wasn't familiar with fraternities and stuff. And so she asked a brother there, she was like, "Oh, is this like an open party? Anyone can come?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, anyone can come, unless you're like Jewish or something, you know?" And so that was, she just like walked out basically after that. But yeah, I'm glad she didn't tell me that right away.
Wow, historically white fraternity.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I lived in a fraternity house for 3 years. I stayed in the dorms for my first year, but yeah, no, it was a good experience. Like I remember more so not the like crazy open parties, of which we had few. It was just more hanging out in the basement with guys, shooting pool, doing dumb things. At one point, someone built a forge. Like literally they casted concrete into like, and then they attached a shop vac to it. And we started melting down beer cans. And that was pretty cool. Like that was, I don't know. I had more fun doing that than a lot of like parties.
Yeah. So you're very pro fraternity. You want to discuss the concept of it being time to ban fraternities. We read a think piece or two about this idea that's been tossed around a bit, just in relation to the hazing discussion.
Yeah, I think it like I understand where the impulse comes from. Honestly, like it's difficult because the schools that would probably benefit the most from banning hazing are the schools where banning fraternities, but the schools where the externalities of fraternities are the worst are the schools that are most indebted to fraternities. You know, Alabama has over 50% like of the student body enrolled in fraternities. You can't kick them all off.
Yeah. A big reason why universities don't want to ban fraternities and sororities is because their alumni that were members of those organizations donate more on average, and they stay more involved. Like I know you, for example, you've stayed involved with your fraternity in a way that I have not with my university in general.
Yeah.
It's a way to like, you know, meet even freshmen, say, of your school.
Yeah, I would sooner donate to my fraternity than to my school. But yeah, it keeps you coming back there. There's like Founders Day events. We have like a Thanksgiving thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so unlikely that Congress, well, this think piece, they were advocating for Congress to ban them.
Wow.
And that's unlikely because 76% of congressmen on average historically have been members of fraternities or sororities.
No. Individual schools have banned Greek life. A lot of, I think the pattern is like small schools, I would say, have done it, the ones who are able to do. And I think that's a good system. I think that, yeah, I'm all in favor of bad fraternities being shut down. I think if anything, like it should be easier to catch them, you know, but it's very difficult. You don't know what's going on in those houses. I think steps like, faculty advisors and stuff can assist in that and training brothers. But like, I just think there's a lot of guys who go into it with like malice, essentially, like maybe guys with a chip in their shoulder or something, or like predisposition to cruelty. And that's where the worst incidents come from.
Yeah. Fraternities are sort of bent towards secrecy in general. It's very hard to create a culture of reporting. For every one that you reform, there's going to be one that pops up that still has issues.
Yeah, no. Like the thing I talked about, where the guys just getting their hands on a charter for a new fraternity, despite bringing in all these old problems with it.
Yeah. And related to hazing, I finally now want to talk about Houses of Horror. It was a 6-part documentary I watched for this week, and it taught me a lot about hazing. And it's not an easy documentary to watch if you've had experiences with fraternities or sororities. Like the 3rd episode, it covered a brother at Penn State University, Timothy Piazza, who died from a hazing incident. So in 2017, he was made to drink 18 drinks in 82 minutes. His blood alcohol content reached 0.36%. But that's not what killed him. He fell down a flight of stairs. His fraternity brothers, they then propped him onto a couch. Throughout the night, he kept standing up and falling back down. He kept getting concussion after concussion, and his brain swelled and his spleen ruptured. And the fraternity brothers, instead of getting him medical help immediately, they waited 12 hours. They waited for the party to end. They cleaned up the party. They destroyed all evidence, and then they brought him to the hospital where he then died.
Just the callousness. Like they're clearly just more concerned about like getting kicked off campus or losing their charter or anything than they are caring for this human being that's like in their care, essentially. It's just such a gross perversion of just the ideas of fraternity that like, yes, pledges have to like earn their place in the fraternity and all that stuff. But like, Jesus, like where do these people come from who are capable of doing this? And it's horrifying of all the ways to die. Being surrounded by people who do not care about you sounds like a unique type of hell. And I think about these parents in this too, of you like safely get your kid to 18 years old, navigating all the other like troubles that could befall them. And then the one time they're out of your care here, and you trust them to go out, like they're just cruelly killed.
No, watching that documentary was in some ways the oldest I felt, because I was like watching these 19, 20, and 21-year-old guys just prop up these like brothers experiencing alcohol poisoning onto couches and then leaving them to die. And I was like, these guys are too young to have this responsibility. But it's true.
No, it's just like this. Yeah, it's this little world of like, like guys all within 4 years of each other. And then there's ones who are supposed to be the adults in the room and they're woefully unqualified. And you have kids, with no life experience coming into this.
Yeah. I didn't realize before this week how dangerous alcohol-related hazing actually is. Because in my mind, it was just frat brothers being like, oh, have another drink, another drink. Instead, actually, what often happens, particularly with alcohol-related hazing deaths, is they're given an entire bottle as part of the pledging process. And they're like, you need to finish this whole thing or you're kicked out. And so, like, there's another brother, Danny Santulli, who he didn't die, but he's rendered permanently blind. He's in a vegetative state. But they gave him a fifth of vodka, and they were like, you have to finish this. And they give him additional alcohol. But it's like, how could you give someone that much and expect them to be okay,
No, it's just like, it's guys with like 4 years of drinking under their belt, like trying to lead guys with like...
Or like no years, like a couple of months.
Yeah, but like, and those are the victims of this. And no, it's horrifying stuff. I've heard of a lot of fraternities who have like bans on hard liquor in there, and that seems on its face just like a Band-Aid or stopgap solution, but like it's a step, I think, versus like expecting fraternities to have no alcohol whatsoever. Granted, there are dry houses. Some fraternities I know like will have individual houses that are dry. You can be made dry by your school or by your national organization. But Danny Santulli's story did result in the federal Stop Campus Hazing Act in 2024. I think it speaks to how like all these deaths can happen, but like permanent disability is sometimes like even more powerful in a way, of his family like wheeling him out and showing like this, he's going to live the rest of his life like this. So there's power in that. And I want to believe in that law doing good, but it's, if you read the body of the law, it's just a lot of, all right, schools have to look a little harder is what it is. They need to like set up a program. People need to be assigned to it. It's a lot of stuff good schools were already doing. So I guess it brings up the floor in terms of anti-hazing action by schools. But it's, I don't know, it's something is what I'd say. I don't want to say it's nothing.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of schools want to turn the other way and look away because they have reputations as being party schools that get them more applicants, like say San Diego State University. But one thing that gives me hope with all of this is that usually when a frat brother dies, a pledge dies, they do indict like say 20 guys. And I don't know why, but that makes me feel a bit more hopeful, the fact that they're not just pinning it on one or two.
Yeah. And it's like, and there's also these like, to try and stop the problem, which is that like guys don't get help out of fear. That like all of these stories do sound so hauntingly similar, where they just put the guy on the couch and then like have a different drunk guy try and take care of him. So some states have passed like Good Samaritan laws, where basically if you take that like brother to the hospital, like you're not going to be charged with anything. If you did your like best possible job on it. So hopefully, these are a system of kind of like stopgap things on an often like state level. But this is kind of a strange case that not everyone might know about. But John Hamm, the actor from Mad Men, one of my favorite shows, was in a horrifying, was the perpetrator of a horrifying hazing incident back at his school.
Yeah, but not alcohol related. This is a joke I've made for many years that I now feel bad for joking about, but I've often said that one of the straightest things you can do is be like a straight guy in a frat in a hazing death. And I thought that John Hamm was one of those guys. He didn't actually kill someone and it wasn't alcohol related, but he, along with 7 other frat brothers, was in basically a hate crime in the 1990. They beat up someone for something related to Greek life. And that's not funny.
No, it came back up like in 2015 towards the end of Mad Men, and John Hamm just kind of like brushed it off. But they like disbanded his chapter after that, and other guys were caught up in it as well. But it's like more common than you'd think, I guess.
Yeah. And this is a bit crazy. I didn't write about this. I was going to save it until the episode to tell you. But I actually met someone once who was in an alcohol-related hazing death.
Oh my God.
And so in college, I worked at a grocery store, and there's a hot guy who worked in the meat department. I knew he was like a military veteran, and he had like an American flag belt buckle. And so with a lot of hot guys, I Googled him, and then I found this news article where when he was in his early 20s, he had supplied alcohol to someone who had died at a frat party. His blood alcohol content got to 0.5%. And what's interesting is with that story is just like seeing the consequence for him in his adult life after, accidentally killing someone in his 20s. Cause like, I think that's why he probably went to join the military. Like he got expelled from college, and then there weren't that many choices. So then he went and served, he came back, he now works in a grocery store, and he was also working in a bar. And, I don't know. It's just interesting to meet someone where they have that in their history.
Yeah. All these like cases where people try and actually prosecute like the brothers who are involved in these cases, like there's always this, the way they ask for leniency is they say like, all right, one life has been ruined by this, but do we have to ruin 10 more? And I understand the desire to balance that, but like, no, like if this is going to stop, then like, yes, you do have to punish people. That is, we have a wonderful system of laws prepared to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think they should, because there haven't been that many alcohol-related hazing deaths. Like, yes, a lot, but not as many as I would have guessed, actually.
Yeah. So Wikipedia has this very macabre but fascinating list of hazing deaths that go all the way back to the 1700s, including pre-fraternity stuff, just general hazing. There's some military hazing deaths in there. Like deaths in the 1890s up to World War II are not the type that we've been talking about previously. It's largely like sepsis, pneumonia, drowning, concerning amount of water in hazing rituals. I do have to say, it's always like, and you think about it in the college environment, like a lot of initiation is in winter. A lot of schools are located at beautiful bodies of water or like a river or something. So it's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And then there's also not an insignificant amount of electrocutions, which is bizarre, but like each one is like, this fraternity in the 30s had a ritual that involved like crawling on your arms and knees through like lightly electrocuted wire, but then they did it wrong and a guy died. Yeah. So like there's a lot more like freak accidents than there are alcohol poisoning. There was even one where this guy was running and then he ran into a tennis net wire and his spleen exploded and he died.
What?
But it was a race between pledges. But like, that is, I'm sorry, I guess that's a hazing death. That is a like freak accident. That is like 1 in a million kind of stuff. But yeah, the first alcohol intoxication death by hazing is not until 1975 at Northern Illinois University. I hate when Illinois comes up in contexts like this, but geez.
Yeah. And that's interesting that we have to wait until 1975 for there to be the first alcohol-related one, because that kind of coincides with the release of Animal House in 1978. That's 3 years later. But you see this uptick in alcohol-related hazing and alcohol-related hazing deaths because Animal House, it popularized the idea of fraternities and frat brothers being intoxicated in the American mind. Like that's where that stereotype really comes from. Yeah.
Not that fraternity brothers didn't drink before, and even like going back to like medieval times, there was this account called Murdered by Clerks. You ever see that? But it was a Twitter account that would post just strange medieval death articles basically, because they'd announce every death in like the local crier. And Murdered by Clerks comes from, clerks were the name for like college students basically, and bands of college students in medieval times would get drunk and go out and kill people, and it was common enough that people were being murdered by clerks. So like,
that's weird.
Yeah, no. Like it's one of those things that makes less sense when you read more about it basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's always been like drinking and debauchery, but like, yeah, Animal House really ushered in this like modern post-war concept of fraternities banging beer cans together and getting drunk.
And you've seen the movie, right?
Yeah. So it's been a while. I hadn't seen it since I was 10 years old, when a very ill-advised babysitter put it on for me in Germany. But yeah.
It was like, can you even speak the language? Yes. Yeah. But I saw it this week. It was my first time. And the film, it follows two pledges in the fictional Faber University as they try to join a very rundown fraternity called Delta Tau Chi. And Animal House is kind of familiar to American Pie, Planet X, and Spring Breakers in that they're party films that feature debauchery. But unlike all of those other ones, I kind of like this one because I found the humor very witty.
Yeah, no, it's very like, charming and well written. It's by all these like, I don't know, just very, very classic. Like, I'm sure lots of crossover with like SNL writers' room of that era and stuff.
Do you like party films?
Not Not especially, and definitely not sex comedies. This can also be put under that, like with American Pie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've never really understood the crossing of those two genres. I don't really know why in a comedy movie you want to be a little bit like horned up. Like,
Yeah.
don't say the appeal.
Yeah. The only party film I really like is Party Girl, which you watched with Discord. That was very fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really like party films because they paint people and society at large as being way more debaucherous than they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And with this movie, it was interesting because they were kind of trying to paint the 1960s as being less innocent than they actually were.
Mm-hmm.
And I found a quote. The writers of the film, they saw the film's 1962 setting as the last innocent year of America, and the homecoming parade that ends the film as occurring on November 21st, 1963, the day before President Kennedy's assassination. So it was a very like boomer angle of being like, oh, actually, in the past, we were naughty. You know?
Yeah, it's like this is when the good times ended, and then the counterculture and all the things downstream of that.
Yeah.
I never really realized, like, it's always hard to tell period pieces, like, as time goes further away. But yeah, it's a 1978 movie about 1962. It's not a large amount of time.
Yeah, there are interesting nods to what was going to come with the counterculture. Like there's a professor, and in his home, there's like a poster with a peace sign. And so, yeah, they had the foresight to be like, we know what direction society is going in. Yeah. It did get a bit more sleazy, but it was too sleazy for most of the movie.
But yeah, it kind of like, though it was trying to purport like a fraternity lifestyle of the early 60s, it really dictated what fraternity life looked like in the following 80s.
Oh, yeah, that's true. With Alexander Robbins' book, I learned something really interesting. So with the release of Animal House in 1978, Robbins says that Animal House changed everything. Many students came to college expecting to party hard after the 70s. The alcohol industry then saw a marketing opportunity and aggressively ramped up marketing on campus. So they did things like they put alcohol ads in student newspapers, they put inflatable giant beer cans on campus, and they even hired some students to serve as representatives of the brand and hand out free beer on campus. So they really ramped up.
A low-grade industrial conspiracy. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the 80s seemed super fun to my eyes and my fraternity, looking at those like old photos and stuff. Maybe it's just film photos looking good or something, but definitely, lots of boozing.
Well, I mean, one of the reason it might seem like they were drinking more, I didn't realize this before this week, but the legal drinking age, it got raised to 21 for all states in 1984. I didn't realize some states were lower than that before that. Did you know that?
Yeah. I know. My understanding of it was that like the federal government brought states to heel by threatening to withdraw federal funding for highways unless they raised the drinking age. And to my memory, the last holdout was Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah. One of the many ways that Wisconsinites beat their chest and say they're the drunkest state.
Yeah. But that's a very interesting correlation, the fact that right as you start to see alcohol-related hazing deaths occur, it was when the federal drinking age got raised, because I think then fraternities became one of the only places you could like safely or legally, or not legally, but clandestinely drink off campus.
Yeah.
And that's why they then became what they were, just like places to do that, and students started dying.
Yeah. I imagine it must have cratered the college bar industry. Not that those don't exist nowadays, but yeah, it just pushed a lot of drinking outside of a supervised space into an unsupervised one.
Yeah. Because then, say house mothers, house fathers, they had to turn a blind eye. And I bet some fraternities were like, we don't want you anymore.
Yeah,
we're going to be unsupervised.
Come to think of it, is that when, I'm trying to think if that's when the old British lady left our fraternity.
You said until the 80s, right?
Yeah. I think she died. I think that was more time than anything.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Also with Animal House, everybody says that their fraternity inspired Animal House, which is funny because in the movie, they're like a low tier frat. That's like the joke. They're working their way up.
Yeah. There are two frats in particular that actually did inspire it. So the writers of the movie, one of them, they were a member of the Zeta Beta Tau fraternity at Washington University in St. Louis. Another one, they were a member of the Alpha Data Phi fraternity at Dartmouth College. And the later one is interesting because some Discord members were talking about Dartmouth in the Discord. And our friend Kamara, she described it as being like, every person I met who went there is such a bro. And apparently it's like the party Ivy school.
Oh, yeah. Like, I mean, Cornell is like nerds. I know my dad didn't do any partying basically when he was in college. But then Cornell's also regarded as like the worst one too. So it's like they study the hardest for the least credibility.
Yeah, they have to work harder.
Yeah. But yeah, Dartmouth is like, yeah, it's like sporty, jocular, broy. In Take Ivy, the like Japanese photo book that's like held up as this Bible of Ivy style, like the Dartmouth photos are like a little more rugged, maybe like sporty and outdoorsy, versus the more like buttoned down at other schools.
Yeah. Yeah, it's generally the lower tier Ivies, like the top ones, Yale, Harvard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if they have fraternities, but yeah, they don't have the same like habits.
I hate people are going to clown me on this. But yeah, Harvard, I think they don't have fraternities. They have dining clubs and then all that. I don't know.
Yeah. I know Princeton has like a really big dining club culture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, fraternities always make good like structures for movies, I think. Even the extremely goofy movie and Monsters University, which are children's movies, they can't even show drinking, but it just shows that like it's such a good format. You have, different teams, and you can kind of like spend a bit of the movie exploring this is this fraternity and this is the other one's the sports, the jocks, the creatives.
Yeah. I need to watch those movies with fresh eyes after this week. Yeah. I'm no longer innocent.
I remember in Monsters University, one of them's like Uzma Kappa or something, like one Greek letter and one like made up monster letter.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then like fraternity style, I think we've like kind of covered this throughout our different episodes on like prep and logo prep and that kind of stuff. I think nowadays there is no fraternity style basically in the great flattening now.
Yeah, it's not visually distinct because, Ivy style was associated with college age men.
Yeah.
And now I think it's really just general youth fashion is what you see on college campuses.
Yeah, I think it's just the last gasp of it was like Vineyard Vines, like 2000s, 2010s, like Chubbies, which I've talked about before too. It's just the Oxford shirt is still there, but it's never tucked in. Maybe it has like something crazy loud embroidered on it or something. Short shorts, Sperry's, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that style is kind of frozen in time. Where now, I don't know if other people will say the same, but for me, shorts below the knee are sort of always going to be associated with frats in my mind.
Oh, below the knee?
Yeah.
Oh, what? Like long shorts?
Oh, yeah, totally. Like
really?
The longer shorts that are like less gay, I know Chubbies were like more of your time and they were shorter. But
Yeah. I guess, yeah. I can see that on both sides, yeah. Maybe I'm picturing like 2000s being long shorts and then the great shortening.
Yeah. But yeah, on fraternity style, I actually found a really amazing image archive from the Theta Chi chapter at Penn State University. That's where the artwork for this episode is going to come from. I found a really good batch of photos from 1988. And there's actually a part 1 and part 2 because they must have had a frat brother at the time who was really into photography.
Yeah.
He took amazing photos.
Yeah, and like I don't want people to think that I want everyone to go back to wearing like 3-piece suits or something. Like no, I want like the average bro to dress like this. Like it's just so much better than just like dry fit t-shirt and like sweatpants. Like I don't know, like rugby shirts, just like nice cotton crew necks and stuff. Like I don't know, dumb hats. Like yeah.
No, that archive, it's kind of a capsule of like your style, the style we've talked about on the podcast. And it also has the image quality that we've been iterating with most of our episode artwork images.
Yeah, mostly film and analog, photos. No, and there's a good mix too. They have like guys at formal events, so they're in like blazers and ties and slacks, but then also like they went to spring break. And so now it's like tank tops and stuff.
And there's beachwear pics. I put one on our beachwear Pinterest board.
Yeah, and then I think there was like they went to a cabin at some point, so the flannels are out. Like, I don't know, there's like a seasonality to it that's also really fun. Yeah.
And I would be remiss to not talk about this. I want to talk about gay men and fraternities. This is something I already had some pre-formulated opinions on, but Alexandra Robbins' book Fraternity, she mentions that when fraternities were founded, they didn't focus on women at all. And it wasn't until female enrollment increased, particularly in the 1920s, that frats started to go in a more hyper-masculine direction.
Interesting.
Because as she explained, fraternity members lived, ate, and slept together in close quarters. Outsiders began speculating that fraternities were dens of homosexuality.
Oh, wow. And this is also in the 1920s. So they had the pansy craze of the late 1920s, early 1930s on top of all that.
Yeah,
the accusations were flying.
Yeah. And so that sort of explains why frat brothers started to broadcast their sexuality and try to have as many female sexual partners as possible, because people were leveraging those claims that frats were gay. Like, why would you want to live with so many other men?
Yeah. maybe this explains my like very good fraternity experience, because going to a tech school, it has a proportion of women probably similar to the average school in 1900, I would say. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of like, do you think I'm gay, man? There wasn't a lot of that stuff going on.
Yeah.
No.
Something I realized this week thinking about that is it's kind of paradoxical that gay men often do feel very uncomfortable in male spaces or all male environments. And I think that those all male environments, they kind of intentionally become homophobic because that's the one thing sort of keeping us at bay. Like, yes, we oftentimes also don't have like conventionally masculine interests. Like, say, one reason for us not to join the military is because we don't find like guns and cars exciting. But fraternities, that's one place where gay and straight interests like really overlap. Like, think about Thought Topics and how much those guys drink.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so many gay guys like it too. And the only thing keeping them out of fraternities is the guys being homophobic.
Yeah, no, that is true.
Another thing to bring up is just that a lot of gay guys find frat guys attractive.
Mm-hmm.
It's a straight male coded activity.
Yeah.
But it's honestly over time, it's become less impressive or rare to me. Like
Yeah.
it's not like encountering a guy like shooting or fishing, like drinking. Yeah, gay guys do it all the time.
Yeah, also it's like further in the past too. You know, they're like a washed up frat guy if they're still talking about it. As I guess I am. It's the topic. It's the topic.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, I flirted with a guy at Sidetrack who I found out was bi, and I found out that he was in a frat. And that was the last gasp of me being like, wow, I'm so surprised.
Last time you found it cool.
Yeah. But the guy was like, oh man, like whatever. Because apparently he was like, it gets fetishized so much. Like, I'm tired of hearing it. Like, gay guys do find it more attractive.
Yeah. But it must be like being a woman flight attendant. You know, it's just exhausting. Like, as a woman, you're sexualized anyway. And then if you have a job, it's always sexualized too. It's just like, oh, brother.
Yeah. Like, you feel like they get like sort of sexually harassed off the job for it even too.
Yeah. No, and the people aren't seeing you. They're just seeing the uniform or whatever.
Yeah. You know, if I want to be very gracious to gay men and their attraction to frat guys, I think the thing that they find attractive beyond just looks, it is the laid back attitude, because gay guys are oftentimes a bit higher strung and stressed out, and they're very self-conscious, and frat guys don't exhibit that as much.
Yeah, the chill frat guy. If people forget about that. Yeah, that's the ideal frat guy. The worst is the very high strung frat guy. That is the guy who's going to do coke and ask if you know anyone there.
Yeah. And then, do you want to hear a funny anecdote? Okay, so I know a gay guy, or actually he's bi too, where he was the president of his fraternity, and he's a bit older, like say starting to get closer to 40. But when he was in his frat, he was not out. And he actually had to go to a meeting with the presidents of several other frats. I think there were 13 there in total. And the meeting was about there being a gay student and how one of the other frats kicked them out because they found out he was gay. And he looked around the room and he realized that 7 of the 13 guys there he knew were gay or bi had sexual experiences with men. Some of them he had sex with them too. But he was like, oh my God, like we are all talking about this like one frat is being homophobic. And then they all collectively, they voted not to reprimand that frat. They went with the side of homophobia.
Wow. And 2005 is longer ago than I think it is sometimes. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. The presidents, like that makes me think that like, wow, like fraternity presidents, I mean, it's just guys who will take on responsibility. It's guys who are motivated like by taking authority and also can like have the social intelligence to garner votes and get on everyone's good side. Not to say those are gay traits, but those are traits. It's a social intelligence I see more of in gay guys, I would say.
No, gay guys love bureaucracy and they love sort of like
they love Robert's
social
rules,
environments.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, me included. I love them too a bit.
They do love rising to the top. That is true.
Yeah, and then I just want to touch on like how common are gay frat members. So there really a study on the proportion of gay frat brothers and fraternities. They found it to be roughly equal to the general student body, which is about 5 to 6%. And then the study also concluded that their purpose for joining was not sexual attraction. That's not why they were there.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. I don't know, it's what I'd expect, but yeah. So in my fraternity, we have like a Facebook page for all alumni. And then someone made a Facebook page for gay alumni, basically to talk about their experiences and stuff like that. And they posted it on the main page, like, hey, to any like brothers who are like out and stuff, like you can join this page and talk to other brothers. And some active members or something, I don't think they were alumni, I think they were active members from another chapter, disliked it. They did the angry react on Facebook And people are like, what the hell are you guys angry reacting for and all that? And one of the guys just goes like, I just don't think the founders would agree with this. No. The founders are from 1905 or whatever. I don't care what they think about stuff. Like, they wouldn't want a Jew joining or a black guy, and they didn't know that germs existed. I know germ theory is older than that, but yeah, just don't take their opinions on that stuff. Like, that's such a like weird, originalist view of fraternities.
Yeah. Something I learned from a book once is that oftentimes when someone does have very extreme beliefs, one of the only ways to really justify it in regular society is to say that it's an originalist idea.
Yeah.
Like people who have very extreme right-wing beliefs, if they're like say the Second Amendment with how absolutist they are with it, like they'll be like, oh no, the founding fathers, they wanted us to have machine guns, obviously.
Yeah. No, I think it's comforting, like in a world where everything is shifting and changing. You just say like, those guys 300 years ago, they figured it out, and we're all wasting our time if we try and interpret it. We have to take the letter of the law.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in conclusion, like fraternities have been around for 200 years. It's totally understandable that they've drifted from these very high-minded goals of like edification and raising the moral characters of its members. But they're still providing like in-person social connection in a period where that's very difficult. I think if they can square away all of those horrifying negative externalities of deaths and hazings and misogyny and all that stuff, like they're a very good force.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why Zoomers are gravitating towards them in ever greater numbers. It's because they don't have a lot of options for IRL, in-person social activity. And you do become friends with people when you're forced to live with them.
Yeah, that's why, like, I don't know, COVID hit my fraternity pretty hard and I was worried for them. But I'm like, I don't know. And then just, generational concerns about whether Zoomers do want to make friends. And I'm just like, I feel like if a place can survive 2 world wars, Vietnam, and all that, like, I think it'll be fine. I think the system will be fine.
And it's the Lindy effect. The longer something lasts, the more likely it is to last into the future.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.